Creamer Media's Mining Weekly is speaking to Mark Freimüller, the CEO of Hyundai Hydrogen Mobility. Mark, can you tell us about this green truck revolution and the use of hydrogen now in trucks?
What's important to understand is that we are not just looking at a demo project here. We actually we have a market launch of fuel cell hydrogen trucks. So it's not just one truck here and one truck there. We have already 50 trucks, fuel cell trucks in the market. And our plan is to have another thousands basically in just Switzerland by 2023 and then 1,600 by 2025. We are not selling the vehicles, but we're kind of renting them out. We use a pay-per-use model. That means that the customer pays a certain fee per kilometer and everything's included. So that means also the hydrogen, the consumed hydrogen is included in this fee per driven kilometer. We're not producing the hydrogen ourselves and we're not building up the infrastructure by ourselves, but we're basically coordinating everything with the business partners we have, which is, for example, Hydrospider on the production side and all kind of different members of the Hydrogen Association, which are operating fueling stations. So with this setup here in Switzerland, we can really offer an alternative and a financially viable alternative to a diesel truck.
Why trucks and not also cars?
Truck is the best lever to develop the infrastructure, and then passenger car will bring the volume to really scale up and have the possibility to bring down the pricing, especially on the hydrogen technology side. Why is truck the best lever for the infrastructure? If you compare the cost, or let's start from a HRS, hydrogen refueling station point of view. The cost are, let's say, around about 190, 200,000 euros to set this up on an annual basis. It's not the cost to set it up, but let's say over the 10-year depreciation time, you have to gain about 190,000 Swiss franc or euros or dollars, just to give you an idea. Now, if there is a margin of, let's say, 2 Swiss franc or euros, that gets you to 95 tons of hydrogen, which needs to be sold per year per refueling station. And now you can either do that with about 700 passenger cars, or you do the same thing with 15 trucks. So that is the big difference, because there are barely 700 vehicles, hydrogen passenger cars all over Europe, and they would have to refuel at this one refueling station to make it a financially viable business case for the refueling station. But 15 trucks is relatively easy to coordinate around this refueling station. And that is just because the passenger cars have less mileage and less consumption. And the demand is much higher. So the throughput of hydrogen is much higher on the trucking side. That's why I'm saying building up the infrastructure, which then can also be utilized for passenger cars. The truck is the right thing to start with, and then passenger cars can follow. And then you have a self-propelling system, because the more passenger cars are in there, then there's another investment possibilities in this whole infrastructure as well, and you get more attractiveness to have, once the infrastructure is there, there's a high attractiveness to also utilize that for passenger cars. With more passenger cars, we'll bring down the cost on the technology side. So, like I said, scalability comes with passenger cars, and building up the infrastructure to kickstart that and take care of this chicken-egg dilemma when it comes to demand and supply. Truck is the perfect solution to start with.
Will this be green hydrogen?
Yes, absolutely. In Switzerland, we're completely focusing solely on green hydrogen. That is because not only it's the right thing to do, because otherwise it would just be a relocation of your exhaust pipe, basically, if the CO2 is produced somewhere else. And that is basically the major argument also why we start with green hydrogen. In Switzerland, the whole business case works because on the one hand, the diesel costs are much higher here than in other European countries, for example. But the more important part is the second reason, which is a road tax, which you do not have to pay if you are running an emission-free vehicle. And this road tax is directly connected to the weight of the vehicle and the annual mileage. So the heavier the vehicle is and the more kilometer the vehicle is doing, the higher the road tax is. And we are talking about quite a significant amount. We're talking about around about 60,000 euros per truck per year, right? And if, as I said, the vehicle is emission free, then you don't have to, the operator does not have to pay this tax. Now, this tax and also all other subsidies which are available in other European countries is basically to reduce CO2 footprint. Now, if the CO2 is just produced somewhere else and the vehicle's operation is only only the local vehicle operation is CO2 free, then at one point in time the government will say, "Well, wait a second, you're not really CO2 free, right? So you have to pay the tax," and that would be jeopardizing then the whole business setup. So I think also, in the long run, there are a couple of investigations which are clearly stating that in the long run, green hydrogen will be cheaper than gray or blue hydrogen, anyways. And also from a purity perspective, there's a lot of advantage with green hydrogen.
Are these trucks using PEM fuel cells? Because if we use the word PEM, the South Africans jump up with delight, because then it involves our platinum group metals. Normally, we normally supply, platinum group metals for PEM fuel cells.
But yes, it's PEM.
I'm very pleased to hear that it's PEM. And why is it PEM?
The PEM electrolyzers are more flexible in regards to operation. You can turn them on and turn them off quicker than what you can do with alkaline electrolyzers, and that's why it's easier then to utilize cheap electricity or the electricity at a cheaper price point, and just utilize when there's excess, when there's additional additional electricity in the grid, basically, which cannot be utilized otherwise. Then you can say, okay, if it's there, if it's cheap, then I can utilize it in a PEM electrolyzer, and this is in 15 minutes frequencies, right? So it's more flexible from a usage perspective.
And then you say the fuel cell is just PEM. That's
the fuel cell is just it's the technology of the fuel cell is the same. Always.
And how long do you think it's going to take for trucks and buses, trains, trams, ships, planes, and of course, as you say, the cars will come as well? How long is this going to take?
I think that's going to accelerate quite fast. I mean, you see that, especially in Europe, most of the countries have now, since last year, some kind of hydrogen strategy. And there's a lot of funding coming with that to kickstart that. It's important to utilize the funding to just kickstart it. It has to, work and be sustainable in operation, also without subsidies in the long run. But to kickstart it, I think the whole funding is necessary, and there's a lot of that out there. So we need passenger cars in the hydrogen ecosystem for the scalability of the technology, but trucks is the perfect start for building up the ecosystem in regards to the infrastructure. So with trucks, we can solve this chicken-egg dilemma in regards to supply and demand. We have a good opportunity here to create a viable business case in the transportation sector and really offer an alternative, a financially interesting alternative to the end users in the heavy duty trucking industry. And by that, really kickstarting and building up the ecosystem, creating a self-propelling system, which can then be utilized for passenger cars as well, and create this momentum, and having a self-propelling system then, which can also live without any subsidies. So I think hydrogen in the mobility sector will start with trucks, or actually we're doing that already, but we will see hydrogen on a more broader scale also in ships, in trains, and all other applications, also outside the automotive world, because hydrogen as an energy storage is absolutely crucial and necessary, and there's no way around that to change the electricity to a more environmental friendly technology.